Today we're going to take a look at the Warlock class, one of the three main spellcasters of Baldur's Gate 3. They are extremely versatile, provide some incredible area of effect powers, and can easily render an entire enemy team useless with just a couple of powerful skills. If you're looking for a more evil playstyle that controls the forces of death and necromancy, then Warlocks are an excellent choice. Now this build makes use of abilities such as Hunger of Hadar, which by level 5 will affect enemies in a massive area, slowing them down and even providing necrotic and cold damage explosions every single turn. This will keep enemies away while your other team members further use their own attacks to pretty much take everybody down, even combine AoE skills for some amazing party synergy. You also have Eldritch Blast, which is an amazing cantrip. It's always going to be available and it kind of becomes your nuke once you level up a bit and upgrade this. Plus the build is highly tanky and reactive via skills like Shield of Agatha and the Fiery Rebuke, which will make your Warlock a very punishing enemy to hit. Warlocks also get some special types of spell slots, which you will not get as many as some of the other classes such as Wizards, but they do replenish on a short rest, so you can go for longer before having to end the day up. But going over the character creation, there are a few choices that work really well here. Drow is an excellent pick since it already features one of the Warlock passives from the superior Dark Vision, so you'll never let low vision stay in the way of hitting enemies, and you get a nice resistance to charm and sleep effects via the Fey ancestry. Half Elf can also work really well, mostly if you want to be a bit more tanky via the Civil Militia perk, and this is going to also let you equip shields. Plus, going with the high Half Elf can even provide extra cantrips, as Warlocks are notorious for starting rather bare bones in the ability department. Now, our starting cantrips are obviously going to be Eldritch Blast. This is going to be our main attack skill and the one that will boost later on with more damage and pushback effects. But I also recommend getting the Bone Chill. This is completely busted even in the end game, and that is because it completely prevents a target from healing until the next turn. So your enemy will literally cry in a corner as you take massive chunks of their HP away, and they literally cannot heal that. Now, for the subclass choice, all of these are actually pretty good. However, we're gonna go with the Fiend for this one. And that's because we get the Dark One's Blessing, which lets us gain 4 temporary hit points whenever we bring a creature down to 0 HP. So this helps quite a ton with survivability and just increase HP as we continue in combat. We also get the powerful Armor of Agatha, which is going to last until a long rest, providing extra HP and also deal cold damage to any target that dares hitting you. And by the way, that cold damage, it can also critical hit, so between this and the Fiery Rebuke, you can literally take like half of the enemy's HP before you even get some damage onto you. Finally, we also get the Arms of Hadar. This deals some necrotic damage and prevents targets from using reactions, though it does have a low range. What you can do in this case is you can replace it immediately with a Hex in the spell section, which is a much better option early on. So this is a concentration spell that, on top of dealing necrotic damage every turn to the affected target, it also lets us debuff it with disadvantage on an ability of our choice. So strength, dexterity, constitution, and so on. Plus, this will not consume a spell slot if the enemy dies before the spell ends, so we can just use it a lot more often in the same fight. Now, moving on to the background, usually I go with the Charlatan, which in my opinion fits best the Warlock class. You get extra deception and sleight of hands, which are a charisma and a dexterity skill, so 2 of the main stats that we use anyway. Otherwise, Guild Artisan is a great alternative. You get insight and persuasion. Maybe even Noble could fit here somewhat if you want that route. Now, for the starting ability points, the safe route would be 16 Charisma, 16 Dexterity, and 14 Constitution. Everything else, 10 and 8. Charisma is our primary ability, so that's how we buff our damage, and this is how we're gonna scale up the damage of the Eldritch Blast later on. Dexterity also helps with initiative and being one of the first to take a turn in almost any fight. And finally, Constitution helps us with just having extra hit points and also a bit with the concentration saving throws, which are going to be very helpful as we do use concentration spells. Now, at level 2, we get Hellish Rebuke. This is a reaction skill that deals fire damage to your attacker. So as I've said, between this and Armor of Agatha, you might even take down half of the enemy's HP if it tries attacking you. This is also when we get to pick between various invocations, and we're gonna pick Agonizing Blast and the Repelling Blast to boost up our Eldritch ability. So the Agonizing Blast will add our Charisma modifier to the damage that the skill deals, and Repelling Blast is how we keep enemies at a distance, as our spell now has a very strong pushback effect. At level 3 we have a few options. Cloud of Daggers is a possible choice if you lack damage. Scorching Ray is also great for more single target enemies, but I usually go with the Misty Stab just because it lets me get in and out of fights very easily, avoid combat, or just better position myself. However, do not pick Darkness here as a drow, as you're gonna get that anyway at level 5. This is also when we get to choose one of our Pact boons. However, the one I picked is the Pact of Chain. This lets us summon imps and other familiars to help us in combat, even in exploration. They deal poison damage, can even fear enemies, or even turn invisible. And in this case, I always go with the imp. You can of course use this before the fight, so you do have to summon this while you're not in combat, but it's going to be very useful since it does deal some nice damage. At level 4 we have more cantrips to choose between, either Blade Ward or Friends, depending if you want more damage mitigation or some utility in conversation. This is also when I usually pick the Scorching Ray or the Mirror Image. Mirror Image is actually really good if you want a bit more survivability, as it gives you an insane 3 extra AC for each of the 3 images it summons, so you can reach absurd AC levels like 30 plus if you get at least 20 AC, so that's really great. Plus we get our first feat here, which is always going to be Charisma to push that to 18 and further scale our damage even more. At level 5 we get Defend Pact class passive, so this will make our familiars gain an extra attack, which is going to make them a lot more useful in combat. We also gain a very strong tier 4 spell, and we're gonna use Hunger of Hadar for this one. You can choose this or Fireball, but I always go with the Hunger of Hadar. This makes this build amazing. It places down a massive round circle that blinds and slows everybody inside, and it also causes these cold critical hit explosions, plus the possibility of acid damage at the end of the enemy's turn. So that cold explosion doesn't just affect the individual enemy, but also anybody who might be around it in a slightly smaller AoE. But coupling this with a way of pulling enemies inside of it, you're always going to want to affect as many targets as possible, which is going to severely slow them down and give all of these debuffs against them. We also get another Eldritch Invocation. In this case, you can go with the Devil's Sight if you did not pick the Drow. However, if you did pick that, then go with something else, maybe Fiendish Vigor, which can be useful for some extra HP. Slow can also be great here if you want to provide some extra CC against enemy targets. Level 6 we get Dark One's Own Luck subclass passive. This is going to call on your patron to change your fate and add a dice roll to your ability check. This, however, can be used once per short rest, so it's actually quite busted. It's going to help you quite a bit. Also, this is when you can pick Fireball as your next damage spell and pretty much make the build almost complete. At level 7, we're gonna immediately get Blight. This is an insane single target damage. It's even stronger against plants, which are going to have a disadvantage roll against it, and even if they do succeed on the roll, they still get half the damage. Plus we get another Eldritch Invocation. In this case, we're gonna pick the Book of Ancient Secrets. This gives us a nice silence that creates a big dome that just silences everybody inside and prevents them from spellcasting. Plus you gain 2 good abilities, Poison Spray and Chromatic Orb, that can help you early on. At level 8, we have a few options like Wall of Fire, Counterspell, or even Mirror Image if you did not pick that yet. However, I really enjoy Counterspell, as this is a reaction to enemies' spellcasting. So if somebody else tries to cast a spell against you, maybe a really powerful AoE one that you really want to avoid, you can completely nullify that for the entire turn and prevent the enemy from using it again for that turn. So this actually saved me many times when an enemy would have otherwise silenced me or blinded me or provided some other massive AoE effect. But we also get a feat at level 8, and in this case I usually go with the Warcaster. This gives us an advantage on saving throws to maintain concentration spells. And we always have one of those concentration spells active, either Hunger of Hadar or Hex or maybe something else. So we don't want to fail the concentration roll on this, we want to keep it for its entire duration. This is going to further help with that. At level 9, just pick whatever level 5 spell you want. Flame Strike or Cone of Cold. Both of these can work just great, and eventually you're gonna get both of them anyway. We also get Minions of Chaos. This lets us summon one of those fire, wind, earth, or water companions. If you ever fought against one of these, you know how powerful they can be, especially since they have an AoE damage, a flurry attack, and even an easy way to teleport or fly out of enemies' reach. Now at level 10 we get the Fiendish Resilience class action. This lets us choose between different resistances to any type of damage, so both physical as well as elemental types. Plus, it's always readily available. It will not consume an action, so you're heavily incentivized to cast this in case an enemy is about to use a certain attack against you. So if they are about to use some piercing damage, you will want to have that available. Or if they cast some kind of elemental magic, maybe fire or ice, you can just increase your resistance to that. You can also grab one remaining cantrip, and from this point on, Cone of Cold or any other missing spell that you did not get yet. At level 11, we get the Mystic Arcanum. This lets you select one level 6 spell, and once per long rest, you can cast it without consuming a spell slot. In my case, I went with the Circle of Death. This is an amazing ability that fits very well, an even larger AoE than anything else, and you just have to select a primary target to hit, and then all enemies in a circle around it in a large area will also get hit with the necrotic damage. And finally, to level 12, this is the final Eldritch Invocation. At this point, pick whatever you want. It could be combat or just RP related, doesn't even matter. And of course, the final feat, which could be the final ability improvement to get to that 20 cap with your charisma. Now, the one thing we did not talk about are the items, and as a Warlock, you kind of have the benefit of not really needing much items in order to become useful and deal a ton of damage. However, around Act 3 is when you get some really powerful choices, including the legendary Marco Hashkir staff, and we covered this as well as the robe in the area in yesterday's video. So this gives you a bonus spell save DC, which is going to make it more difficult for enemies to resist your spells. So between the advantages you have against them, the disadvantages that you provide, you're going to more easily hit enemies and you're going to hit them much harder. We also get Arcane Battery, and if this is activated, it lets our next spell to not consume a spell slot. So this can help a ton. However, just keep in mind that not all spells will work with this, and they will get highlighted for the ones that will. However, until you reach this one, you can use obviously the Staff of Crones from the Hag encounter in Act 1. This even gives you a free poison ray that can be used without consuming any actions, but it, I believe, consumes your HP, so you might need some resistance to, well, poison damage. Robe of the Weave is the second item you get from the same area, and this is going to also give you some more spell DC and a heal whenever you succeed saving throws against spells, and you will probably do that quite a bit. But this robe also comes with 2 extra armor class, and if you also have a race that uses Civil Militia or you have another source of shield proficiency, you can gain a 4 extra AC by just having this item and a shield equipped on your character, so that you can easily reach 20 AC much earlier. And of course, we went with the Birthright. This is one of the headpieces you can buy from Roland in the Sorcerer's Sunrise right here in the main city, well, the lower city area. But this gives us a +2 charisma and even lets us exceed the 20 cap all the way up to 22. And this is what the build looks like once you get it all sorted out. Usually your Warlock is almost always going to start first, so you can immediately place down a Hunger of Hadar and get at least a part of the enemies affected by it, so that it's going to be almost impossible for them to reach the other side. Plus, you can also like just use a black hole with one of your other characters, suck everybody in and keep them very close and tight in the center. This is going to also deal that damage over time and also the cold explosions. So between these and some of your other AoEs from your other team members, you can completely destroy enemy groups. From here, you have a ton of AoE damage spells that are also devastating. So it could be a Circle of Death that you can follow up with, or maybe something like a Fireball immediately after. And if you want some single target damage, you can obviously use the Blight. Plus, you have the Eldritch Blast to throw anybody that might get out of the circle back in, because, yeah, the chance to throw them back in is going to be available for each of the damages. So all of the 3 lines will actually do that, not just the first one. Anyway, that is about it with the Warlock build. Let me know down below if you build it similarly or if you have any other different setup in mind. In the meantime, totally check out some of my other videos, including this guide to some insane secret weapons, including some of the ones that I showed you in this video, or maybe some of the biggest mistakes that you should avoid if you're starting out or you just want to learn something new. Thanks so much for watching, and until the next time.